In the last video, I showed you how Canadian eligible dividends, because of their special tax treatment, how they can actually lead to very low and sometimes negative tax rates. If you haven't watched that video yet, I'll put a link in the description. But in this video, I want to show you how that special tax treatment can sometimes lead to some unintended consequences. In this video, I want to show you three examples. I'm going to show you one example of how the tax treatment on Canadian eligible dividends can be very helpful in retirement. And I'm going to show you two examples of how that tax treatment can sometimes lead to unintended consequences. Before we get into the examples, I want to preface this video by saying that tax planning should always come after investment planning. We want to start with a good, solid investment plan. We want a portfolio that has low fees, is in line with our asset allocation and risk tolerance, and has a high level of diversification. And then, and only then, do we really want to start thinking about tax planning. Okay, let's take a look at those examples. Okay, so the first example we're going to go through is a low-income retirement situation with GIS benefits. So there's a small amount of investment assets, the TFSA is maximized, and there is some money in a non-registered account producing dividend income. So in this case, we've got a cash dividend of $1,500. It's getting grossed up to $2,070, and then we have the tax being applied. Now the second piece, of course, is the dividend tax credit. So we're getting a tax credit on that dividend income. Now this does lead to a negative tax rate, but because we're in a lower income situation, that tax credit is actually not very helpful. So because we have the basic exemption, the age amount, the tax credit on the dividends, it doesn't actually lead to a negative tax rate. This is what we call a non-refundable tax credit. So in this case, that dividend tax credit is partially lost, and we're just having tax of zero. Now, tax is actually less of a concern in this situation. The bigger concern is actually the GIS benefits. So the second piece to this is we're going to look at how the benefit is reduced with the dividend income. So we've got that same cash dividend, $1,500. It's getting grossed up. But this time we're looking at the clawback rate on GIS benefits. So 50% clawback on GIS benefits, which leads to a GIS reduction of $1,035. And this is because the GIS calculation, it looks at the grossed up amount, not the actual cash dividend received, but the grossed up amount that gets included on the tax return. Now the effect of this is that the tax rate, the effective tax rate in this situation is actually 69%. So even though there's not a lot of income tax effect, there's a big effect on the GIS benefit. So we're losing $1,000 or more in GIS benefits on that $1,500 of eligible Canadian dividend income. This leads to an effective tax rate of 69% and makes this sort of income very unattractive if you're in a lower income situation receiving GIS benefits. Now let's take a look at our second example, which is average retirement income. So we've got maybe a little bit of pension income, CPP old age security, maybe there's a bit of an RRSP, TFSA, and a little bit of money in a non-registered account that's producing $10,000 a year in dividend income. So we've got Canadian dividend income, $10,000 a year. Again, it gets grossed up. So we've got the gross up here, the first step in the calculation, and then we get the tax credit down below, and this leads to a negative tax rate. So in this situation, that negative tax rate can actually help us make a withdrawal from the RRSP. So we can make a strategic RRSP withdrawal of $3,400, a little over $3,400, because of that negative tax on the Canadian eligible dividends. So if this was actually foreign dividends, we wouldn't have the opportunity to make this withdrawal because there wouldn't be the tax advantage from the dividend tax credit. So this is where locating specific assets and specific accounts can sometimes be helpful depending on the situation in retirement. In this case, we can make $3,400 in RRSP withdrawals without really triggering any extra income tax at all. Now the third situation we're going to look at is a high income retirement situation. So in this situation, we've got old age security clawbacks. So above a certain threshold of retirement income, we're now triggering a reduction in old age security. So same situation, we've got probably a fairly large RRSP, and that's why we're triggering old age security clawbacks. And there's a little bit of non-registered accounts, so we're creating $10,000 a year in dividend income, we're grossing it up. But the tax rate's a little bit higher. So we have higher tax rate in this situation. We still get the same dividend tax credit, but we don't have negative tax rates in this case. Still a very low tax rate, so 8.92%, but not a negative tax rate. So At the first glance, on just the tax alone, dividend income looks very attractive, but we have to look at the effect on the old age security clawback. So the second piece of this is that we've got the cash dividend, it gets grossed up, and that's what the OAS clawback is looking at. So unfortunately, that grossed up amount leads to a fairly large reduction in old age security benefits. Now, because old age security is taxable, we actually have to look at the tax reduction on those benefits. So even though we've lost $2,000 in old age security, we're also going to pay less tax because we're not receiving those benefits anymore. So the net reduction in old age security, after we take into account the reduction in income tax, is about $1,400. So on that $10,000 dividend, we actually have a tax rate of close to 15%. So if we look at the effective tax rate, combining both the income tax effect and the old age security clawback, we end up with an effective tax rate of 23%, which isn't bad, but it's much higher than just the income tax rate alone. So in this situation, dividends are actually not the most preferred form of income in retirement. This last little bit of retirement income, it would actually be better if we had that as a capital gain versus dividend income. My name is Owen. I'm an advice-only financial planner, a CFP, and I'm the founder of planeasy.ca. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. We're coming out with a new video every week. Thanks for watching.